Hello, hello, hello. Welcome back, Holist Tribe. Today we are talking about kiddo sleep, and I mean the tiny ones. Mine are now 4 and 7 and sleep 10 to 12 hours a night. I'm really jealous of them, but I so remember how hard the newborn period is, and for many infants and toddlers. And so today I have Dr. Nilong Vylas here to talk to us. She is a pediatrician, public health specialist, and pediatric sleep expert. Welcome, Dr. Vyas.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. Thanks for inviting me.
So today we're going to talk about baby and toddler sleep. And you have an MD from LSU and an MPH from Tulane, and you're a board certified pediatrician and a sleep coach. And so this is, you're like the perfect person to talk to about this. And I know getting your baby to sleep is one of the most controversial, contradictory, and confusing aspects of parenting. And you really take this personal parenting goals of the parents into consideration. And you know all the common sleep approaches, and you're the perfect person for us to consult with when we're having these troubles. And so thank you so much for joining us today on Holist.
Of course.
So your patients and your clients adore their sleep doctor because you consider everything when giving advice, knowing that sleep is not a solitary issue and being intimately involved with the rest of the child's holistic being. So that's like diet and development and day-to-day schedule. And so it's a really great resource. And I want to make sure everybody knows that you do virtual consults. And so first, let's talk about the newborn. My oldest, when he was a newborn, he slept for like 35 minutes at a time for 10 weeks. And I thought residency was hard. It was definitely one of the hardest things I've ever done. So give us your top couple of tips for our newborn parents.
So newborns are tricky because, moms are, they're getting over the delivery. They're getting over potentially a C-section, a vaginal delivery, a difficult delivery. And then they have this new being to take care of. And there's so much uncertainty involved. And a lot of parents have read lots of books and researched and think that the baby's going to come out with certain, guidelines,
Yeah.
and they don't fit those guidelines. And so what I tell my parents with newborns is the focus is to make sure that they're feeding well. A lot of times they go into these little short cluster feeds, and moms, especially when they're learning how to breastfeed, and it is learning. It's no woman is born knowing how to breastfeed, so it's a matter of learning how to do it. And a lot of times they put the child on the breast and they don't know if they're getting enough output or the child is getting enough intake. And so focus on the breastfeeding or feeding in general. So if it means consulting with lactation, breastfeeding specialists, just to make sure that the child is feeding properly. Because if they're feeding well, they're going to automatically sleep well because their main and primary need is being met. And one of the things newborns will and should be waking up overnight to feed. That whole, oh, my baby slept through the night from day one, that they're either lying or delusional. That shouldn't happen. If they are doing that, there's something wrong. So the child should be waking up to feed overnight. And a lot of times parents, when you get a few seconds of sleep and the baby wakes up crying and your heart rate goes up and you wake up and you jump up out of bed and like, I don't know how long's it been since the baby fed last? Am I supposed to be feeding now? I don't know what to do. Let me just put him on the breast. And a lot of times parents will turn on overhead lights or turn on their phones or turn on lamps. And that light can trigger the retina of the infant, the newborn, and cause wakefulness. And they're already kind of confused with the day and night. And we'll talk about that in a second as to why. But so if the parents put a red light bulb in their room where they feed the baby at night, ideally their own bedroom, since the baby should be sleeping in the room with the parents according to the AAP recommendations for at least 6 months, if not a full year.
Oh, wow.
So if you put a red light bulb, the baby can't see those red light waves, but the parents can see through the red light waves so that they can do what they need to do to get ready to feed the baby, burp them, change their diaper, get them reswaddled and back to sleep, without potentially awakening them. And
Like there's a couple like really interesting things that you've just said that are like totally applicable to adults too, right? Because sleep is like intricately involved in our metabolism and our energy storage and metabolism and a consumption. So like of course, the better you eat, the healthier you eat, the better you're going to sleep. I mean, that's what our weight wellness clients find, hands down. Additionally, lifestyle medicine, we love to talk about sleep as well. And it is those warmer colors of the lights that get into the retina less like aggressively suppressing the melatonin, which helps you sleep. And so totally makes sense. I mean, I know pediatricians don't like to hear that like kids are just little adults, but but in those two cases.
And the same thing for adults too. When you're waking up overnight, if you're having difficulty sleeping, most thing that or the thing that most parents or people go to is their phone, right? And the blue light from the phone, tablets, causes wakefulness. So now a lot of phones have built-in nightlight settings, and you can set that to come on at 8 p.m. or 9 p.m. And that way, if you do wake up in the middle of the night and need to have access to your phone for whatever reason, if you have that red light triggered, at least you can do what you need to do and try to get back to sleep.
Yeah. So I work nights in emergency medicine. So I do a lot of day sleeping, and I have blackout shades, and I've got earplugs, and I've got a mask. And if I have to go to the bathroom, I don't take the mask off. It's like super dangerous, but I'm like stumbling through trying to like not stimulate myself. So
yeah, that's gotta be difficult.
Yeah. What else about our newborns?
So what I was saying before is that they have this day-night confusion. And a lot of times the reason that happens is because when they're in the womb, the mom is walking around during the day and it's rocking and lulling the baby to sleep. And then at night when she lays down, that's a lot of times when if you talk to pregnant moms, they'll say, oh yeah, that's when I feel a baby move the most, is at nighttime. So they're sort of awake at nighttime, and they can see, they can tell light shifts, and they can tell daytime and nighttime in the womb. So when they're born, they're used to being asleep during the day and awake at night. And so one of the ways to sort of switch that day-night confusion is to ensure that you offer wakeful periods during the day and make sure that there's light available and that does stimulate the retina and causes wakefulness. And then at night, provide a dark environment. And a lot of parents are hesitant to do that because they're like, well, I don't want my baby to only be able to sleep if it's pitch black, and I don't want them, to be so rigid and regimented. But think about you as an adult. And, if someone were to say in the daytime, go ahead, go take a nap, fall asleep right here, right now, you're not going to be able to. You need the proper environment to be able to sleep. And newborns can sleep anywhere. And I live in New Orleans. And so I always tell parents, like, newborns can sleep when there's a parade going on, because there's always parade going on. You will see newborns sleeping through parades. But once they get to be about 2 to 4 months of age, they're a little more aware of their surroundings, and they will not sleep through a parade. Some of them will, obviously, but they become a little more aware of their surroundings. So you have to provide the proper environment for sleep to happen. So it has to be dark. It has to be quiet. You don't want the TV on. You don't want lights on. You want to create that proper environment so that they can transition to sleeping more at night.
Yeah, I love this because, as parents, right, we have a job to do, and it's to, when they're older, teaching them how to be kind and respect their community and how to study and all those things. But when they're little, it's like how to sleep and how to eat and how to go to the bathroom, right? Like that's our job, right? And this is just all part of that conversation.
Yeah, and like I said, you're teaching them, and the way to teach them is to learn it yourself, right? You're not born knowing, and there's no manual that you get the second you become pregnant that here, follow these rules and you'll have a happy, healthy child. It doesn't work that way, and every child is so different. And so what you've done for child number 1, you can't necessarily do for child number 2. You have to adapt to that child.
My dad always tells me when I'm talking about the differences between my kids, he always says, the only reason to have a second is know that nothing you did the first time is going to work the second.
Exactly. Yeah. And that's why your body forgets everything that happened.
Exactly.
You wouldn't have a second.
Right. No kidding. So let's talk about our little sociopath toddlers. Give us a couple of tips to tame these monsters.
So what happens a lot of times, or the mistake parents make with toddlers, is to transition them into a toddler bed too soon. Obviously, if they're jumping out of the crib, then yes, you definitely have to transition them. But I find a lot of families will transition them because mom is pregnant with the second child. So like, oh, we need the crib for the baby. So let's get, Johnny out of his bed because we want to transition him before the baby comes. So there aren't too many changes once the baby comes. But um, like I said, according to the AAP recommendation, which is to keep the baby in the parent's bedroom for at least the first 6 months, if not the full year. Little Johnny can stay in his crib for at least even the first year of the baby's life. So ideally, if the first child is 2 or 3 or even 4, they're a lot older and can understand, they can be reasoned with. So it's better to make that transition into the toddler bed when they're older and can understand that transition and
Yeah,
understand.
and it's like I feel like it's sort of like, crate training your dog, right? It's like they really like they
Yeah,
like the comfort of it being kind of surrounded. And also I feel like the longer you wait, the more that you're able to use one of those clocks. They can
yeah,
like interpret the clock a little bit about when they're allowed up and when they're not. We had
yeah.
a bunny clock, our first one, and the bunny would like wake up when it was time to wake up. And I have a recollection of my now 7-year-old standing in his crib and yelling, "The bunny's up!" like down the hallway to like wake me up. But we have some clocks now that the kids still use, and it's just hugely helpful. But if they're
I,
too little and you get them, they get like wandering around and they can't
yeah.
interpret the clock, then
And it's not safe. You're kind of asleep or in a, kind of in a daze because there's a newborn potentially, or just in general, and the toddler gets up and is walking around the house. It
yeah.
can, if they figured out how to do door handles and figured out how to walk out of the house, there's a lot of reasons not to get them out of the crib, unless, like I said, some 13-month-olds are attempting to jump out of the crib, and
Yeah.
you obviously don't want them to fall on their heads and hurt themselves. So in that scenario, yes, you do have to transition them to the toddler bed, but if that is not happening, then do not take them out of the crib before they, most cribs are capable of holding kids even up to 90, 80, 90 pounds. So
Yeah. Oh,
that can
wow.
be a, 4, 5, 6-year-old easy. So there's no need to pull them out unless they're, I usually tell parents wait until they're nighttime potty trained, because once they're nighttime potty trained, you want them to be able to get out of the crib and go to the potty if
That
they
could
need
be
to.
10 for some of our kids, right? Everyone's different with
My
that too.
second one was nighttime potty trained at 18 months, but the older one, I think he was almost 4. I think the older one was still in diapers when the little one was out of diapers.
Yeah,
The first one
my
reached him.
my 4-year-old is now just finally out, and he's having less accidents at night than his big brother. So everybody's different.
Everybody's different.
So tell us maybe a little bit about naps for our toddlers.
So naps, that's the other thing that parents kind of get into the habit of, or make the mistake of dropping the naps too soon. If kids are in daycare, obviously that you're kind of, at the mercy of the daycare. Most daycares drop kids down to just a 1 nap schedule at 12 months of age, as soon as they switch into that 12-month classroom, which I don't agree with. I'd like to see kids doing, at least 2 naps still at that age. I've had 18-month-olds doing 3 naps still at that age. And those are kids that are at home and given the option of taking those naps. But I typically don't recommend the kids that are at home. I typically don't recommend going down to 1 nap until age 2. That's developmentally when they're capable of going down. Obviously,
I
you're
miss
doing it based
naps.
on cues and not forcing them into a schedule and saying you're not 2 yet. You have to take 2
Yeah.
naps. Um, you're doing it based on their cues, but developmentally speaking, most kids still need the 2 naps. And the way you'll know if you're dropping a nap too soon is just the behavior of the child and the mood of the child. If you see that they sort of hit a wall and, by 4 p.m. because you've
Yeah.
skipped that nap, and then they can't make it later, and then you're finding yourself giving them a nap at 4 p.m. and they sleep till 6 and then they're not sleepy again till 9 p.m. and the whole cycle sort of repeats
Yeah.
itself. That's when you know that, okay, maybe I shouldn't have dropped that nap. But if they're completely happy and fine and their mood is great, then maybe they're capable of dropping that nap around 3
I
or 4.
my kids, neither of them are really napping anymore, and I really do miss naps. My 4-year-old definitely should be, but he's just, it's hard. You can't make someone sleep, right? I mean, just
Right.
you can't make them poop, you can't make them sleep.
Yes, you can provide the proper environment for them to sleep. Say that you don't have to sleep if you don't want to, and that's a good thing to tell toddlers because you're saying you don't have to sleep. I'm not forcing you to sleep, but you have to lay quietly in your
Yeah,
bed.
we do a lot of
Read books,
rest
rest.
time.
Yeah, exactly.
And then we have like the 7 p.m. like, I am not tired. Oh.
That's when you make them sleep. That's when you say, you're showing me signs or cues that you are sleepy.
Yeah, that's funny. So tell us maybe a little bit about the older child. Any trouble that an older child runs into that we can know about and try to cut off?
So older kids, the problem there usually is activities, right? They've started doing sport activities or music or, there's so many different activities kids are in. And so they're getting home later and later, and it's harder to do an early bedtime. I still recommend 10 and a half hours of sleep by, 7, 8, 9, 10 years of age, even up to potentially 12 years of age. And so parents are faced with juggling getting home from school, potentially work, getting through all the evening activities, homework, dinner, bath, bedtime routine and bed, and allowing the kid to have a downtime period too. So sometimes I feel like I'm a drill sergeant with my kids in the evening because, you've got to get through those things so that they can get to bed on time so that they can wake up and be rested the next day. And there's a lot of older kids that don't get to bed till 9, 9:30, 10. And so finding either cutting activities if you have to, seeing if the kid can be picked up from school earlier so that, parents don't get off to work till 5, maybe finding another caregiver that can pick them up at 3 so that they can get their homework done, or putting them in a program after school so that their homework can get done, or dinner can get done before they do their activities, kind of juggling what happens in the evening so that the kids can still get adequate sleep, trying to shoot for at least 10 and a half hours of sleep. So even as, like I said, as old as 8 and 10 and 12 years old, trying to get them down by 8:30 if possible, if they're waking up at 6:45, 7.
Yeah. Yeah, it's so important. I mean, sleep is really just such an essential health tool that we often, especially those of us, professionals and especially in medicine, that we like to tell ourselves we don't need sleep, right? And like, that's like a badge of honor. But like adults are supposed to be getting 7 to 9 hours. And like I said earlier, the evidence is there that the sleep that we get absolutely affects the prevention and the reversal of some diseases. And so it is something we should not be blowing off, and we need to be teaching our kids this. And so I hope that our listeners have learned a lot from you today, our viewers, and I want everybody to know that Dr. Vylas is available at sleeplessandnola.com. We'll put that in the comments so that you can find her. She does virtual sleep coaching and consults. And here at Holist, we're doing weight wellness transformational programs, 12 weeks of digital delivery of weight science and mindset information around food and your relationship with food. It's not just for people who are trying to lose weight. It's for people who want to sleep better, feel better, and be more productive in their lives. And we're excited to be offering that. I'm also doing lifestyle medicine telehealth consults to create a whole you plan for 3 to 6 months moving forward. And so please come find us. And Dr. Vylas, thank you so much for taking time on this pre-Thanksgiving day.
Thank you.
And we'll talk soon.
Okay, sounds great. Happy sleep.